Hi everyone, Alistair here. Before we get into the stories this week, I wanted to chat to you a little about the host, because the host is an actual superhero. Brian Lieberman, known to our social media followers as Bedoomed, has been with us for 15 years. That is amazing. And honestly, so is Brian. Brian is an incredible community manager with 7 flash fiction contests under his belt and frequent tours as an associate editor too, in addition to everything else he does for us, and he does a lot. Brian's pioneered a lot of data interaction and research with us, which is a roundabout way of saying he has tasked the darkest of Google magics to help us make sure people are actually finding what we're doing, and to help us make sure we're as discoverable as we can be, and that we have pretty good ideas of where our audience sits. Which reminds me, just in case the sole listener we have in Vatican City is listening to this one, good afternoon. All of that is impressive by itself, but here's the thing. Brian doesn't do one thing, he does like 30 of them, and he's done them for a decade and a half. As a volunteer, he is, on top of that, endlessly courteous, wickedly funny, fiercely dedicated, incredibly good at his jobs, and an absolute joy to work with. Thanks, man. Happy anniversary. From all of us. PseudoPod is extruded into this universe from a dimension of purest fear. It's beautiful in its own alien way, but what's to come will unsettle you.
PseudoPod, episode 818 for July 15th, 2022. This week's stories: Flash on the Borderlands 62, Flash Fiction Contest 7 by Frank J. Aretto, Hannah Whiteoak, and Carlo Yeager Rodriguez. Narrated by Dennis Robinson, April Bundy, and Carlo Yeager Rodriguez. Hello everyone. Welcome to PseudoPod, the weekly horror podcast. I'm Brian, your host for this week, and the person generally in charge of the PseudoPod Flash Fiction contests. And if you're wondering where your normal hosts went, don't worry about it. It's nothing. They're fine. They're just fine. Or they will be fine. I think. I hope.
We have a pulse!
Yep. They'll be fine. This week we present the 3 winners of our most recent Flash Fiction contest, and geez, it's been 7 already? Feels like I just started this gig. Hold on. Hey, has anybody been messing with time lately? Doctor, don't give me that look. Deal with him later. Anyway, first up is Overnight Home Companion by Frank J. Aretto and is narrated by Dennis Robinson. Frank Aretto is a writer of weird fiction living in the wilds of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with his wife and numerous offspring. You can find his strange tales in places like Flame Tree Press, the year's best hardcore horror, and the magazine of fantasy and science fiction. This will be Frank's 4th story to appear on PseudoPod. This particular tale is part of Frank's guerrilla fiction project, the Weird Fiction Write and Release program. Horror flash fiction written to appear like common street flyers is posted around the city with the hope that they will inject a little weirdness into the lives of the people who read them. So, watch out for signs about used cars that do more than take you places, and lost pets that no one would ever want to find again. Or, in the case of this story, a unique job opportunity. Because I have a flyer for you, and I promise you the offer is real.
Overnight Home Companion by Frank J. Aretto. Narrated by Dennis Robinson. Position: Overnight Home Companion for shut-in. Must be able to read. Lack of imagination, a plus. Salary: $250 a night. I've never seen who pays, but the cash is there every morning at sunrise. A brown paper bag in the mailbox. 20s and 10s. Good money, right? But I need to explain some things. I don't want you coming in blind, like I did. Pros: no adult diapers to change. In fact, you'll never even see Mrs. Hendricks. I've been doing this for 3 months, and the only reason I know her name is it's written on the letters on the kitchen table. There's an old dirty curtain hanging across the back half of the bedroom. I imagine Mrs. H behind it, all tucked in beneath her covers. I've never looked, though. You don't look behind the curtain. Cons: Patty Paddleduck's Playdate. It's a kid's book. Illustrations so cute, they're creepy. The book is on the chair when you get there. Cute story. Patty Paddleduck has a picnic, invites all her friends. Betty Blackbird, Reggie Rabbit, Freddie Fishfin, you get the idea. Reading the book is the gig. Seriously, most of the time what's behind the curtain, Mrs. H, is quiet. But when you hear a noise, you pick up Patty Paddleduck's playdate and you read aloud. Usually, the noise will stop right then. But I read it all the way through a couple times just to cover my ass. When the noise doesn't stop, wet sounds now, dragging sounds, read louder. When the curtain ripples as if it's in the grip of a cold breeze, you turn your back to the curtain and read louder. When the wind rises and the curtain snaps like a flag in a gale, you don't turn around. You shout out how Reggie Rabbit made carrot cake for the picnic because of course he did. And when the wind stops, replaced by a hot breath against the back of your neck, read loudest of all and pray if you know how. When it's completely quiet, no breath, no wind, not even the rustling noise of an old lady adjusting her blankets, then you can turn back around. I thought about quitting. I have enough cash to get a car, maybe head out west. But during the day, when I sleep, I have dreams. In the dreams, I pull the curtain back. Did you know that's the definition of apocalypse? To pull aside the curtain? I can't quite remember what I see in those dreams, but I wake up crying and reciting lines from Patty Paddleduck's playdate. I only know it's something vast with too many eyes. Eyes that are also mouths. I don't believe I can quit, but I can't go on either. Not without a few nights off. Which is where you come in. The money's good for just staying up late and reading. Like I said, lack of imagination is a plus.
Welcome back. You look like you haven't gotten a wink of sleep. Wonder why. No matter. I'm sure this story will cheer you right up. Up next is Weapons They Gave You to Fight the Blood Monster by Hannah Whiteoak. Narrated by April Bundy. Hannah Whiteoak is a copywriter and short fiction writer from Sheffield, UK. Hannah placed third in the 2020 Escape Pod Flash Fiction Contest with The Day the Sun Went Out, and their work has also appeared in Flash Fiction Online, Luna Station Quarterly, and OK Donkey magazine. Check the show notes to find them online, where they post daily microfiction. So, grab some gauze and get ready for the inevitable, because I have another story for you, and I'm so sorry. But it's true.
Weapons They Gave You to Fight the Blood Monster by Hannah Whiteoak, read by Sevitividum. Mum cried when the blood monster came, leaving a red slug streak as it slid into your room. It oozed onto your bed and extended one dripping hand. You glanced at Mum, who sighed and said, "Oh, better get it over with." The monster's grip made you cry out in pain. Mum gave you many kinds of cotton to wrap the monster in, showed you how to swaddle its angry clot of a face. That didn't stop the monster hurting you, sneaking its sticky fingers from its wrappings to pinch your belly until you wept. But at least it was hidden so it wouldn't scare your brothers. The monster bled through it all. It bled through clothes, through sheets and mattresses, through every product Mum gave you. When you pressed a pillow down on its ugly face, it bled right through the stuffing, materializing like mince from a meat grinder. Magazines said you needed pills. They didn't explain very well, but there was some hormonal magic that could repel monsters. For some girls, anyway. You were determined to be one of the lucky ones. The monster reached over your shoulder and dripped onto the page as you read, chuckling. The pills made you sick at first, but then you felt better. The monster hid under your bed where good monsters should stay. You attended pool parties. You rollerbladed in white denim shorts. You had your first kiss, your first boyfriend. At night, the monster muttered, counting months on its slimy fingers. You closed your eyes smugly, thinking you'd won, until one day you woke up, covered in its blood. Instagram suggested a change in attitude. The monster could be your friend. You should talk about her at parties. Let her bleed freely in the wilderness. Embrace her until you loved her as part of your divine femininity. You glanced at the monster, which was pulling clots from its belly and eating them, and ran to the bathroom to throw up. You never did finish reading that post. Years passed. They gave you diets. They told you to de-stress. They suggested acupuncture and pills and physical therapy and pills and pills and pills. Nothing worked. The latest doctor smiled. "There's a simple solution," he said. "Monsters love a void. You need to fill that hole in yourself." So you took his advice to heart and grew your own monster. It hurt, but you told yourself it would be worth it. You told yourself that your monster would be fierce, that he would grow so big that the blood monster would retreat. The way he kicked inside you convinced you he was ready for battle. He had merged with a war cry. You screamed with him. It didn't work. The blood monster is now twice the size it once was. It pinches you twice as hard. And now there's a new monster in the nursery, crying, crying, crying. His mouth stretches to swallow you.
Hello again, my friends. You look pale. Are you getting enough iron? Anyway, our last story for this week is Got Your Nose, written and narrated by Carlo Yeager Rodriguez. Carlo Yeager Rodriguez is originally from the enchanting island of Puerto Rico, but moved to the Baltimore area some years ago, where he now lives with his wife and one odd dog. His fiction has appeared in Nature, Uncanny, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Speculative Fiction for Dreamers, Seize the Press, and is forthcoming in PseudoPod. In addition to writing, Carlo has narrated stories in Strange Horizons, Podcastle, PseudoPod, and Escape Pod, and is the host of the Podside Picnic podcast. You can find out where to track them down in our show notes. So buckle up and enjoy the commute while you can, because I have one last story for you, and I promise you, it's true.
Got Your Nose by Carlo Yeager Rodriguez. Narrated by Carlo Yeager Rodriguez. Since he'd returned from deployment, Luis's baby girl was shy around him. Unsurprising, he'd shipped off when she was months old. Now she was in preschool. He was a stranger to his little Vanessa. What a relief when she wanted to play with him all afternoon. Taking her cue, Karen slipped out for a few much-needed hours alone. Luis couldn't wait to show off how much he and Vanessa had bonded. Luis sat down so Vanessa could look into his eyes. She'd laughed as he'd pretended to be a bulldozer, making revving noises as he pushed a collection of toys, plushies, and board books into piles around them. "What game you want to play now, Nessa?" "That's that right, Dave." She giggled before crowing, "Bye, Dave's Vadessa." "That's right," Luis said. He bonked his palm against his forehead. "I forget sometimes." How about... He reached out to tweak Vanessa's nose between two fingers, pulling back with his thumb pinched between them. "Got your nose, kiddo." Vanessa screamed with laughter, running in circles around him as he held his hand out of her reach. She half climbed on Luis with her hand outstretched, trying to get her nose back. Maybe sugaring her up with 3 bowls of breakfast cereal hadn't been wise. At last, he relented and pressed his hand to Vanessa's face. She touched it to make certain, erupting into gales of laughter. Bye, turd, bye, turd. Luis shrugged. Still laughing, Vanessa stepped up to him, curled her pudgy little hand around his nose, and it was gone. Got your nose, Daddy. He raised a hand to his face, fingers brushing the patch of smooth skin where his nose should be. No puckering, no gnarling of skin and cartilage like so many people he'd seen overseas. Nothing. As if he'd never had a nose. He gulped air through his mouth. Don't panic. Don't panic. Play it cool. Don't traumatize her. Honey, could you come here? Without his nose, his voice made Vanessa laugh harder. She skipped away, keeping her arm out of his reach, then darted under him and curled her hand around his foot. Got your foot, Daddy. His leg now ended in a smooth stump. Luis bit back a scream. Reminded him of that local kid in Fallujah, minus the scar tissue. He sucked a shuddering breath through his mouth as he turned. Howling with laughter, Vanessa touched his other foot, and it vanished. Luis whined deep in his throat, crab-walking toward the front door. He stretched an arm back, hoping to reach the doorknob. Instead, a pile of candy-gloss bright plushies toppled onto him with a collection of squeaks. Vanessa tagged his outstretched hand. Now she laughed so hard, her face turned purple, upper lip shining with mingled tears and snot. Got your head, she shrieked. Nessa, Luis wanted to say, playtime's over, but was cut short when she rushed at his head with arms outstretched, still giggling.
Oof. Sometimes parenting is just like that, isn't it? I may not have raised a child, but I've had my fair share of pets, and it's uncanny how quickly playtime can take a turn for the worse, huh? Speaking of raising things, this marks the end of this contest's crop of stories. It feels like the contest has really matured over the years, and yet we're still always learning, always growing, and always striving for more. I've had the unique privilege of seeing all of our flash fiction contests grow and flourish, ever since the first Escape Pod contest back in 2007, which was run entirely by the incomparable Sarah Ely. It's been absolutely crazy to see participation in these contests grow, witness new and seasoned authors alike compete for select few coveted spots, and help people get a taste for the industry. It sure is a lot of work, but it's endlessly satisfying, and I'm excited to see what horrors our next contest spawns. So, what did you think of these stories? If you're a patron subscriber, we encourage you to pop over to our Discord channel and tell us. And on the subject of subscribing and support, PseudoPod is funded by you, our listeners. We pay everyone, and we're very proud of that, but it relies on your generosity. As always, if you can, please go to pseudopod.org and donate by clicking on Feed the Pod. If you can't afford to do that, and we get it, times are tight, then please consider leaving reviews of our episodes, tweeting about them, or generally making a noise on whichever form of social media seems the least awful this week. After all, friends don't let friends not listen to PseudoPod. And if you like merch, who doesn't? Escape Artists has a Void merch store with a huge range of fabulous hoodies, t-shirts, and other goodies. The link is in various places, including our pinned tweet. Check it out. And, as always, PseudoPod is part of Escape Artists Incorporated and is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 international license. Download and listen all you want to the episode on any device you like, but don't change it or sell it. Theme music is by permission of Anders Manga. That's our show for this week. Tune in next week for different words in a different order. I'll leave you with a quote from one of my favorite authors of all time, the illustrious Kurt Vonnegut, from one of my favorite novels of all time, Cat's Cradle. He writes, "My God, life. Who can understand even one little minute of it? Don't try," he said. "Just pretend you understand."
It's a pseudopod. It's a big foot.
It's all about podcasts these days.